So get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 11th Ward. Today is Tuesday, August 13th. We are here at our first community zoning meeting of the night and of the month. We're here today about an address on 26th Street, 526 West 26th Street. Excuse me, let me just share my screen so everybody can see this as well. We have several of the owners of a a mixed commercial residential property here with us today. And with us as well is their attorney, Thomas Moore. So he is going to present what is being proposed. If you haven't joined one of these meetings before, the whole purpose of this community process is for whoever the requesting party is for the zoning change to explain why it is they're requesting the zoning change, what they plan to do with the change, and then for the community members to ask questions if they have any, as well as to raise any concerns that community members may have if should the change be permitted. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Thomas Moore. And look here, because that's your camera. This guy right here.
Oh, hi. Hello, everybody.
Good to see you.
I am Tom Moore, and first of all, I'd like to thank the alderman for giving me and the four owners here the opportunity to address you and to present this request. These four people are condominium owners in a 14 residential units up above, but 4 commercial units on the ground floor. And a funny thing happened to them along the way. This property we just learned was a bowling alley before, and in 2004 the bowling alley was demoed and knocked down. And in 2005, there were permits to build a new building. And this is pictures of the new building along with the current zoning. Handling the map back there, please.
And we've got a picture here that we're sharing of the front of the building, and then this is the zoning map as well.
Right. And so in 2006, there was an office build-out permit, so the zoning that allowed this building to be built was a C1-2, which allowed for the 14 residential units. That's exactly how many you could build, given the size of the lot, in a -2. But the C1 allowed a variety of businesses that all sorts of businesses. And if they were established right when the zoning was still C1, they would be grandfathered in. But over the 20 years now, as life has gone on, different businesses have come and gone. And now in 2006, late in 2006, the zoning was changed to a RS3. RS3 only allows single family only. It doesn't even allow multifamily, and it certainly doesn't allow any businesses at all. So why that happened, I don't know, and it would be hard to find out at this point. But the result is that these business owners can't get tenants because the tenants can't get city licenses. And so they have a space that's really unusable. They can't make it into a residence either because because it's an R3, single family only, and because there's already the maximum residences. Well, there's the maximum residences when it was built.
Right.
And now you can't have any more residences because it's already non-conforming. That means it doesn't comply now, and you can't make a non-conforming building more non-conforming. So they really can do nothing with. They're paying taxes on it. They have to pay the maintenance, the association fees, and so it's just a drain with no possibility of income. And so we came to see the alderman and ask her if she would let us go to the community and at least ask, could we get a zoning that would allow them to have businesses there? And the alderman didn't think going back to the C was a good idea, because that would allow, for instance, a tavern. But a B3 would allow a variety of office and other uses. And so she was willing to let us send out a notice and present our request to have a B3 too. And that's why we're here today. And we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Right. Does anybody have any questions? If you are online and have a question, you can unmute yourself and just shout it out. There's not that many people on. Oh.
I have a question, but I don't know if it may be relevant like now, or if there might be information later that answers it. My question is kind of just regarding like, okay, us moving it from residential to, I think the B probably stands for business. Like, does that have any effect on like the parking? Because, you know, there are some streets that have meters and currently we don't have meters.
No, it shouldn't. And the decision to have parking meters would come through me. I would have some influence on it. I don't think that there's enough businesses currently to warrant a need for it. I mean, for example, I'll tell you a place where we're hoping to put parking meters. Is by the new shopping center that's along Archer and Canal. Along Archer right now, there's not metered parking, and actually the businesses have asked for metered parking, because what people are doing right now is they'll find a nice free place to park and then they can jump on the number 62 bus to go downtown. That may just be a nice halfway point for them. But it helps businesses to turn cars over. So if it's a maximum of 2 hours parking, you can go have a dinner in a restaurant, get your hair done, your nails done or whatever, and then move on. I don't anticipate there being parking meters here. And there are no parking requirements that I'm aware of. With this really is to ensure that the people who own these, what were originally commercial properties, are able to rent those out. And the B designation, as Mr. Moore said, has a wide variety of uses that could include like a dental office, a doctor's office, a lawyer's office. It could be also a coffee shop. But it's not anything that's gonna create a real high traffic sort of situation. I've expressed to the owners that have vacancies as well, that, this is not a street that's going to really be amenable to a lot of like high traffic type businesses. And these appear to me as if, they're smaller storefronts or offices is really what they're built for. Unfortunately, for some of these owners who haven't had tenants stay on, they have literally been stuck with vacant properties that have just been racking up tax bills. I mean, one gentleman here earlier showed me his tax bill. It's close to $9,000 that he's been paying now. And he's not able to rent the unit out to anybody because they can't get the proper permitting for their licenses. So this really is to really bring this back into more of a conforming state, and allow for those units to be rented out to have a better use, and so that the people who own the properties can also not continue to sort of bleed on this. And it's impossible to sell as well. I mean, this is where all of this started. Somebody came in because they wanted to sell the unit, but they couldn't sell it because it's zoned single family residential, which makes no sense for this kind of property. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And then it kind of goes into my next question, which someone also had put in the chat. Someone else had asked, like, does it affect the property taxes for like owners, like house owners and things like that, which was like my next question.
It shouldn't, and I can tell you this because we're looking at upzoning a whole swath of properties along 35th Street, and this exact question came up. Your property tax assessment has, I think, much less to do with what's happening right in front of you, like on the same block. as it does sort of more citywide and countywide.
Also, I would add, if I may,
Please,
that taxation is supposed to be about use. So all over the city, there are single-family houses that are in manufacturing zones. They just were built before the way back. And they're still taxed as single-family homes because it's about use rather than zoning.
thanks for that, Tom. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, going once, going twice. There are, I will. Any negative effects for nearby residences? I don't believe that there will be negative impact, and in fact, I believe that, you know, it'll be better for these spaces to be used at the end of the day. As I mentioned, Cece, when I've talked to owners of these units, you know, I've expressed to them, you know, part of the challenge is always gonna be parking. There's other things that are happening on the street currently. You know, my desire would be for these to be used as offices or small storefronts. Not necessarily for, and like I said, you can't have a tavern, you can't have a restaurant that serves liquor without, you know, going through a whole bunch of other stuff, and that's not anything that I'm interested in for that street, so I wouldn't necessarily even support a request for something like that. I hope that answers your question, Cece. That was in the chat. Yes, Matt, go ahead.
So, the question more just to, I think, kind of reaffirm what you've been saying. So this building has come up a couple times, in relation to other rezonings that have happened on 26, where people have pointed to these units as being vacant. And so people in saying that there's currently a vacancy issue. Has this been entirely just due to the zoning compliance issue?
I believe it has been.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and thank you for bringing up that point. That has been brought up previously, that there are vacant storefronts already on 26th Street in this building. At the time, I didn't realize it was because of this zoning issue. You know, Ivy here has had multiple parties interested in renting her unit, but she wasn't able to rent it out because nobody was able to obtain the business license and permits that were necessary just based on the zoning.
And then this is kind of a question for the room, and if I'm splitting hairs.
All good.
Stop me, but, so with this being, B32, there's been a couple rezonings that happened on the street that are 2-3 or 2 something. Can you talk about the additional uses that 3 provides, and also specifically, just gonna underline what it still does not allow?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, why don't you, he's
Yeah.
a little bit more of an expert, so I'll let him.
So it would not allow, it would allow a basic restaurant. And, you could have, potentially, although there's a bunch of hoops to jump through and the alderman would have a say. But, you could not have a tavern, for instance, which is pure, or those kinds of intense uses. But it does, you know, allow a wide variety of businesses. But I think the alderman is working with the owners, and the owners have expressed their willingness to cooperate because the current situation is untenable. That she would prefer non-intense uses like offices, and I think they're committed to using their best efforts to make that happen.
And I think final question, and I'll stop. So since this building's been up for what,
20 years,
now?
almost 20 years,
Since 2005.
so 19.
You know, parking always comes up as a question. So does this building currently already have one-to-one parking for the residential units behind the building?
Peter, can you answer that question? The question was, are the number of parking spaces one-to-one ratio to all of the units in the building? Peter, are you still on?
This is also something I can.
Are you asking me, Ms.
Yes.
Alderman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what is the question?
The question in the room was, is there currently a one-to-one ratio parking spaces to units in the current building?
I believe so.
Yeah, so including the commercial units. So each one of your units has one parking space. Now,
Correct.
to be clear, because I did ask this question when we were initially talking, there isn't like guest parking in the back. The parking in the lot is for individual unit owners, so, customers for any business coming today, I mean, and that includes the businesses that are already there, would be limited to the one spot that's designated if they were gonna leave that for customers, but otherwise it would be out on the street.
That is correct.
Okay, and Cece, I just saw your question, so does everything need, to be approved by the alderman for these rental units? The answer to that is no. And I hope we answered that earlier. The zoning, me not going to the original zoning of C zoning, is meant to limit and curtail the most, I think the things that I'm most concerned about is taverns and cannabis, on the street, so. But the business district allows for, a lot of different uses, like I said, including different types of offices, like you can't have a doctor's office, I don't think with just a plain old B1. Depending on what sort of services you're using, so, or conducting in there. It could be for a beauty salon, let's say. So I hope that answers your question,
But a
but
beauty-
these wouldn't need to be approved by me. The only thing that would have to come through me is if there was an application for an incidental liquor license, if there was a restaurant that was opening up
But
there.
a beauty salon would also need a special use.
Special use.
Right. Yeah,
Whereas if it was a C, the beauty salon.
As
would
of-
be
as of right.
right.
and the same thing with like a massage establishment
Yes.
too, yeah.
And the point of that is that there would be community input.
Mhm.
And also they'd ask the alderman what her position is on that use.
Right. Any other questions from anybody else? Check my phone to make sure I'm not getting any text messages from anybody else. Okay, okay. Parking is a big concern. We've got a lot of people coming in for Punky's Del Camo on the ice cream shop. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear on that. CC, so I know Del Camo, depending on the size of the funeral that's happening, they have the lot across the street, and then they also have the lot under the highway. And of course, Punky's and the ice cream shop do have people coming back and forth. Can anything be done? I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. In terms of, there's not a way for me to create more parking necessarily. And honestly, like the owners of these units aren't gonna know, what they're gonna put in there until they're able to have this zoning change so that they can have, a little bit more flexibility, to do that. Okay, and then there's a lot of garbage left as well. So this is something also that comes up, right? Whatever businesses are in your spaces, will need to, adhere to all of the city ordinances. And you probably already get private trash collection, at your building. Yeah, so, obviously, all of you are owners here. You want to make sure that you're getting a good return on your investment. It doesn't behoove any of you to have messy tenants that attract rats and things like that. It's the same for all of the neighbors. So I think the biggest concern, I don't want to speak for UCC as a neighbor, but from the meetings that I've had with residents on the street, this is, the desire really is for people to treat the street as if you live in it yourself. Because if you live on it and care for it enough, you wouldn't allow for garbage to collect. You would make sure that your tenants are good, and that they are taking care of the properties that you're going to be renting out to them.
May I interject really fast?
Sure.
So what I was thinking when I read that the parking is a big concern, and like, can anything be done by that? I think, and I don't know if this might be something that we're able to do on 26th, but, like parking permits or things like that, just because, I mean, also there's a Chinese restaurant on our block, Wing Yip, I believe. And, although it's bringing in a lot of business, which is really good, like also it's sometimes very difficult for like all of us to get parking on some days sometimes because of that. So I guess like that concern is, with more businesses will obviously come more traffic, and we're already not like having enough parking. So is there any way that we could like have that reserved parking for those of us that kind of depend on that street parking, like permanent parking.
That's, we can have a conversation about permit parking that would require, you know, a petition be signed by 75% of the property owners on the block and wherever you want to designate that. So, it certainly is an option. It does take, it takes some work to get that done. And I think, you know, we'd have to make sure that we're also, considering the businesses that are on the street. So it's a fine balance, right? You want to be able to, and I have residential permit parking on the street that I live on. And our biggest concern was people coming and parking all day while we were at work and then not coming. They didn't get off work until like 10 o'clock at night. So when I left in the morning, there's plenty of parking on the street. When I got home at night, it was packed. And then right before I went to bed, all of the street was empty again. So, you know, the residential parking really helped us to ensure that the people that live on the street could actually park on the street when they came home at night. Obviously, we don't own the street. I don't own the little parking space that's right in front of my house. And I park wherever there's an available spot. But if I come home, there's like no available spaces because there's so many other cars of people that don't live on the street, that becomes very frustrating. So, I know that is a concern. I'm happy to have that discussion about, you know, residential parking, and perhaps it is, you know, only during certain times, and if the peak times are going to be like when you come home from work, maybe the residential parking starts at 6 p.m. And goes till like 8 a.m. the next morning or something like that, so that there is some sort of balance. But I'm happy to have that conversation for sure.
Okay.
You're welcome. And I know garbage is a concern, so we try to stay on top of that with the businesses that are out there. And we'll continue to do that. If there aren't any more questions, this is something that I'm inclined to support. I don't think that there's going to be a huge negative impact through this. I actually think that, you know, those spaces are meant to be commercial spaces. They're not huge spaces, so they are going to be limited in what they can do. So I'm inclined to provide a support letter. As I said, I want to acknowledge that there is a big like local holiday going on. I'm doing that sort of provisionally. I want to leave this out. I record all of these sessions so that we post them on our YouTube channel. That way, if there is other concern from residents who were not able to make it tonight, they're able to view that. And if they have questions, we can bring them back. But I have stated sort of my position on this. If I don't hear anything back, or the issues that are raised can be addressed, then we'll move forward with this. But for a period of where are we right now? 2 weeks, there'll still be time for you. I'm looking at Mr. Moore to file his paperwork. So we'll leave this up until the end of the month. And at that point, you know, we'll let you know if we got any more feedback. And then we'll go from there.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Well, good evening, Ms. Holloman.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Bye, everyone.